All right, Mark. First of all, thanks for joining us. I want to talk to you a little bit about Florida State's 31-21 loss to Wake Forest. Wake Forest came in 3-1. Obviously, Florida State 4-0 for the first ranked on ranked matchup in Tallahassee since 2018 when FSU opened up with Virginia Tech. Certainly a lot of keys to the game. We can talk about those, but just get your overall assessment of what you saw, both offensively and defensively out of Florida State.
Yeah, where do I start? I think the top line thought that I have is that was just not winning football by us. Too many penalties, didn't execute on defense. The way we let them block us in the middle of the game when we couldn't stop them, that was a little bit disheartening. We just looked like we had Velcro on. And I knew it was gonna be tough. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, we made number 62, their right tackle, look like an all-pro. That was a little disheartening. But the plays that we left out there, especially on defense. I mean, the first touchdown, the miracle catch. I mean, you have a guy right there, right? And then, the one that obviously sticks out is Greedy Vance right there when we needed it most. He's in position to make a play, and I mean, pick six position, right? And how they convert that third down, I don't know. So you throw that on top of, missed kicks, penalties, just our inability to execute in the running game, early in the game, or at least the middle of the game. That was, just not our best effort. But you got to give Wake credit. I mean, they're a seasoned football team with a lot of veterans and well coached. They got a scheme that took us a while to kind of understand and adjust to. It was just disappointed overall, I think.
Yeah, well, listen, we thought one of the keys of the game would be to limit Wake Forest's run game, but they had not been running the ball very well all year. You knew that Sam Hartman and that great receiving crew were going to make their fair share number of plays, and of course he finished 22 of 35 for 234. But what was more surprising to me was Wake's ability to run the ball when it wanted to. Is very patient with the running game. They came in as one of the worst rushing offenses in the ACC, 104th in the country, but walk out with 172 yards against Florida State. I did not see that happening coming into the game. All it did was make Sam Hartman and that receiving core much more effective. We saw Florida State do some different things on defense. We saw them come up with basically a bear front, which Wake Forest was able to get them out of very quickly. Just talk about your thoughts on FSU's run defense that really didn't get the job done today.
Well, going into the game, we talked about how their scheme is designed to where you can't be right. And so the fact that Wake Forest didn't run the ball real well was really a misnomer, because I'm sure, and I know Clemson did, I hadn't really seen the other games, but I'm sure teams were loading the box and giving opportunities for Hartman to pass, right? So they probably didn't try to run the ball. And if they did, they probably ran it in loaded boxes. I think for us, even though we did line up in the bare front a little bit, we were still playing coverage behind it. As evidenced by all those in cuts, they were hidden, right? And so, they didn't have to run the ball in some of those other games. And we were giving them looks to run the ball. And of course, our inability to get off blocks and affect the running game was again disheartening. But later in the game, we seemed to hit on sending pressure or sending late pressure, or kind of letting defensive linemen get their fits and linebackers and safeties fitting in the gaps, and that seemed to affect the running game a lot better, and we were much more effective. I wish we would have done that earlier. I agreed to go into a bare front. When I was thinking go to a bare front, but I was thinking more in terms of getting that alignment to facilitate one-on-one blocks with the offensive linemen, and then stunt out of it. Maybe bring backers twist, do some things, and we did that a little bit, but not as much as I had hoped we would. But hey, like I said, you got to give Wake credit. They played really well.
Well, we also talked about turnovers being key, obviously special teams, and there are a lot of things that we could talk about, but obviously that was a factor. Only one turnover by Florida State, but it gave Wake Forest a short field, which they scored on, go down 21-7, so there's 7 points of your difference, and then you miss a makeable field goal. We talked about the special teams, that you had to make the threes today, that this was going to be one of those games where every possession counted, and when you had a chance to score. you had to, and that did not happen today. And obviously, Wake's too good offense to give the ball on the 35-yard line with the way they were playing, particularly in the first half, where they had scored on two very long drives right before that and really take control of the game in the first half. And really, Florida State's inability to get off the field was probably its biggest curse on defense. 10 of 18 on third down for Wake Forest and 14 of 21 on third and fourth down conversions. And we talked about this being a possession ball game and that having the ball was the most valuable thing. And what that led to, and even though Florida State played better in the second half, Wake Forest had the ball for 34 minutes and 32 seconds, FSU's 25-28 mark. And when you do that against an offense like Wake Forest, allow them to have the ball that long. Did a relatively good job on limiting possessions. We said we thought Florida State needed to hold them under 10. Wake Forest had 11. But just talk about the ineffectiveness on third and fourth down. And FSU ended up playing 85 snaps on defense.
Yeah, 50 in the first half. They had 50 snaps in the first half and over 120 yards rushing in the first half. And so, and going into the game, we said in our preview show, we needed to make Sam Hartman uncomfortable. And we did not accomplish that in the first half at all.
No.
They were way too, it was just too easy for them. We didn't give them a lot of problems on defense, especially in the middle of the game, early in the middle of the game. And as evidenced by the fact that they just matriculated, to quote Hank Stram, matriculated the ball down the field. And so not giving them problems, not generating a pass rush, and because let me tell you something, I think initially the coverage was holding up okay, but man, he had so much time back there. Those guys were breaking open, shaking loose. I mean, you can only, cover so long. And what a breath of fresh air for Jared Verse to get in there and not offer some pressure. Finally, he made a huge difference. I mean, he made a huge difference when he was in there.
Yeah.
So, look, we were caught shorthanded, I guess, a little bit on the DL, and they just didn't play real well. Didn't generate a lot of pressure. Even when we blitzed, their backs did a great job of blocking our guys. So again, look, they're a good football team. There's a reason why, they're highly thought of. I heard a stat on the TV, and I don't know what it was, but I mean, it's like 2/3 of their team are juniors or above. I mean,
yeah,
they are a seasoned football team and not easily swayed. So, I mean, that's an advantage. I mean, look, I'm not necessarily down on FSU. We and I say we because I'm part of it, but it was not our best game. Too many mistakes. Up to this point, we were playing winning football. We were executing on both sides of the ball. We were holding on to the ball. We were generating turnovers, and we were making kicks.
Then you switch over to Florida State's offense. Struggled really badly. The first half in particular, opened up with a great drive and then could get nothing going after that. 83 yards on its first drive of the game, then 109 on its next 5, including 63 on the last drive, only to miss the field goal, as we've talked about. But probably more than anything that stands out to me from a stat standpoint, 7 of their 10 drives, FSU held the ball for less than 3 minutes. You can't do that against Wake Forest. They ran the ball for just 112 yards on 28 carries. Wake Forest was giving up 141 coming into the game, one of 68th ranked in the FBS. What did you see Wake do to limit FSU's run game?
Yeah, that first drive, it was really clearly defined for Jordan. We ran the ball in a light box. We ran the RPO when the safety came screaming down and hit the slant to Johnny Wilson. And it was really easy, and that I'm going, wow, that was impressive. And then they changed it up a little bit where it was a little more ambiguous to what they were doing. They're playing a single high safety, but their 2 middle safeties were kind of in no man's land, and that made things a little less defined and made it a little tougher for us to execute, and we never really got a good beat on it. And I think it kind of frustrates me too. I mean, our running game, obviously it's very effective. Our backs are getting yards and we're getting it, but there are times when, we get ourselves behind the chains, with these, 1 yard losses or 1 yard gains. And when that happened way too often, I said this last week, we got 1 yard minus 1 yard, 2 yards, and then we bust one for 30. Is more of that. I wish we could be a little more consistent in the running game. And I wrote a note here about answers in the running game. I think it was the might have been the third quarter when we scored in the third quarter, went down the field, and we ran the ball on a second long and a third long and got it. I'm like, answers in the running game. It's possible, but man, for the middle of the game, we just really struggled.
Yeah, again, a little bit surprised at the play distribution. FSU threw the ball 35 times, ran it 28. Trayshawn Ward was the star of the game on the ground for FSU, 13 carries for 87 yards. Were you a little bit surprised that we only saw Trey Benson get the ball in his hands 4 times in the run game, four carries for 10 yards? He'd had a great game against Boston College. A little bit surprised that he did not get more opportunities to get warmed up.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to have seen him, when the game was starting to get out of hand, I would like to have seen him in the game and us try to really run the ball and hold on to the ball, give the defense a blow, that kind of thing. It really didn't happen. But again, we got ourselves behind the chains. Penalties got us behind the chains. Bad plays got us behind the chains. Jordan wasn't his best either. I mean, that's a stretch there where he was looking a little shaky. And one thing I noticed too is that he was really staring down his guys today, especially in the first half. I mean, he was just locked in on guys, and it just didn't look good. When I know on a few occasions there were guys breaking open on the other side if he would just scan the field, So I don't know what that's about. But that was definitely that wasn't him the first 4 games, and it got a little better in the second half, able to generate some plays. But at that point, the game was, Wake was just kind of trying to bleed the clock. So again, not our best game. I think it's safe to say it's about us. I think if we play our best game, I'm not saying we win, but we dang sure wouldn't, it would be a lot better for sure, but that team is not 10 points better than we are, I don't think.
Yeah, listen, I think this is probably 2 teams that if they play 10 times, they split them 5 and 5, somewhere close to that.
Yeah.
Jordan Travis finished 23 of 35 for 281. Did not get enough support from his running game, obviously, and then as you said, there were some key penalties. FSU was going in to make it, I believe, the tie of the game, or make it a 1-score game.
Yeah,
All first and goal and get it called back on a hold that really stopped the drive and gave the ball right back to Wake Forest. So key penalties did hurt FSU, and of course, listen.
Yeah, that drive was a killer, man. That drive when we got the ball back with a short field after the return, right? And we took 420 off the clock and got 0 points out of that. And I think there were 2 or 3 penalties on that drive. That was the game right there.
Yeah, and then of course, when Florida State did come back to make it, I believe they took over with the kickoff. Wake Forest got the ball back after Florida State made it 28-21. And as you mentioned, they are a very veteran team. They've had a lot of success, especially the last 2 or 3 years. And they methodically drove the ball down for the field goal, 18 plays, 66 yards. They had only run 16 plays the entire half before that drive, and of course held on for 6:37. FSU had to burn its timeouts on that drive, and obviously took over the ball with down 10 points, no timeouts. I will say this: we've talked a lot about this, Mark. Years to the last 2 or 3 years, you go in 21-7, doesn't look like there's any light anywhere for Florida State. We did see them come out and fight the second half. They limited Wake Forest to 64 total yards in the third quarter, and they held on to the ball for over 9 minutes. They did not do that in the fourth quarter. What do you listen? The schedule's not getting any easier. You got NC State and Clemson next. What can you take away from the second half if you're Mike Norvell and his staff as you try to get this team re-energized to go on the road and play another ranked team?
To me, there was a noticeable difference in the effort, and there was more of a desperation in the second half. There was more of a sense of urgency in the second half, and it just wasn't there in the first half. I don't know why, but it just wasn't. We're not good enough to go out and play our B game and win football games in this league. We're just not. we got to play like our hair's on fire right from the get-go. And we started out that way, but for some reason it just, we hit that lull, and it was really evident. Now, I don't know if it was if it was by virtue of the scheme and what things they were trying to do, perfect fits and all that kind of thing. But second half, there's a noticeable difference in the effort and the sense of urgency on the defense and even the offense. So what I take away is we, especially going to NC State, which is a very hostile environment, we never seem to do really well when we go to Raleigh. We struggle. But if we don't go in there right from the get-go with our hair on fire, it could be another long night, and that's what I take away. Look, I think, and I bet Mike says this, it's about us,
right?
In a sense, it's about Florida State and how they come out and perform. They had a good week of practice from all accounts. Everything I heard was that, we had a great week of practice, kids prepared, et cetera, et cetera. But, it's a funny game, man. These are 18 to 23-year-old kids, and groups. The psychology of a team is just, maybe this brings them back down to earth a little bit. I don't know. Maybe they got a little full of themselves and patting themselves on the back, and I don't know. But I'll say this: there's now a sense of urgency, because look, our destiny's still in our hands. Right? Wake's lost a game. We beat NC State and Clemson, and NC State beats Wake. That we still got a chance. So our destiny is still in our hands, and that's encouraging, because it's not over yet.
Well, listen, it's always disappointing when you lose, but I was glad to see Florida State fight back in the second half. They did. We've seen them. We saw that resolve. Multiple mistakes. Shot themselves in the foot several times. We mentioned the penalties. We mentioned the 2 catches that were great catches by Wake Forest receivers. 13's catch over 21, I believe, was unbelievable. I haven't seen many catches like that in my life. But listen, they did fight back a little bit too late. You just can't let Wake Forest get off to that fast a start. As you said, the game started perfectly for Florida State. Took the opening drive, 83 yards, scored, take a 7-0 lead. Wake Forest runs 5 plays for 11 yards, punt, and then they score on their next 3 drives. They miss a field goal on their 5th drive, which would have been their 4th scoring drive. And then, of course, things settle in a little bit, and Florida State, to Wake's credit, only had 4 offensive possessions in the second half. So that, listen, they really turned the tables on Florida State in that 4th quarter with possessing the ball, particularly on that last drive.
Yeah. Well, that was 6 minutes in that drive I talked about before, where we didn't get any points. Was 4 minutes. I mean, there's 10 minutes gone right there, and they get 3 and we get none. And that was in essence the ball game. Proud of them for fighting back in the second half and showing a little something. But it was too little, too late. We said it leading up to this game. The margins are small. The margins are small in these games, especially these next 2 coming up too. And you just can't afford it. We have to play our best going and moving forward.
Yeah, when you look at it, points off turnovers, 7, and a missed field goal, there's your 10 points. And listen, I do think if Florida State had been able to run the ball more successfully or had been more committed to it, I really thought that this is a team that Florida State could run the ball on, and they just didn't get it done.
Yeah, I did too. I was a little. I got to tell you, I was disappointed in that. I'd like to see us, control the game a little bit more with the running game.
Yeah.
And we don't seem to do that. We have a lot of big plays in the running game, but we don't have those runs where you're getting, like we did in LSU, right? We get second long and we'd run the ball and we'd have 3rd and 3 and kind of controlling the game. We hadn't done that since that game. Yeah. And I would like to see us do that a little bit more. And I'm not sure why that is. It seems to be when I run it back and look at those plays, it's one guy here, one guy there. I mean, it's not from lack of trying, right? It's
I don't think you ever. I can't question the effort of this football team, or
the fact that they're calling the plays. They're calling those runs and they're just not coming off. And it's usually because of an error in execution by one guy somewhere along the line, whether it's a back making a wrong cut, or it's a lineman, missing a block, or it's a combo not going just right. I mean, or running it the wrong way. I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around on this thing. Look, bottom line is we didn't deserve to win this game with FSU played. We just didn't. And that's the bottom line.
Well, we always knew this was going to be the most challenging part of Florida State's schedule as they got into Wake Forest, NC State, and Clemson. And it certainly has started out that way. Obviously, Mark, I don't think either one of us had visions of this team going undefeated. We knew that, listen, it's not quite there yet. So is it surprising that they lost to Wake Forest? No,
At home.
to me, it's more surprising how they lost with Wake being able to come in here and run the ball the way they did. They ran the ball 51 times out of 85 plays. I did not think that was a recipe for success for Wake Forest against Florida State. But listen, we'll be disappointed just like the team will be for the next 24 hours, and then it's on to NC State, and just reassess what you think of this team through now 5 games.
Well, we had the pieces to win any game on our schedule, but in order, especially in these tougher games, especially these next 2 coming up, we're going to have to play flawless football. We're going to have to play winning football. Now I don't have to say flawless, but we have to play winning football. And if we fail to do that, and that means penalties, turnovers, execution, tackling, making plays when they're there, when you're in position. Those things, if we don't do those things, then we're not going to win. Okay. But we're good enough to win every game on our schedule if we do that. There's no more games, there may be 1 or 2 gimmies on there, but look, Syracuse is rolling, Clemson, NC State, Miami and Florida are rivalry games. Those are going to be tough. And that leaves Louisiana, right?
Yep.
And so, moving forward, that our margins are small. We got to play with a sense of urgency and learn to play at that level. That's just where we are. We're not talented enough, like in the day when you can half butt it and still win by 2 touchdowns. We're not. That's not even close to where we are.
No. And listen. We knew this is a team that's probably just going to get better as it goes on. That's what you would hope for. It's what any coach hopes for. And of course, Florida State will have more than its fair chances to prove that as it moves forward. Again, Florida State loses to Wake Forest 31-21 tonight here at Doak Campbell Stadium. They'll rehash this tomorrow in staff meetings, and they'll go over corrections tomorrow night in practice, and then throw this one out the window and get ready for NC State. We'll be back with you next week for first impressions after Florida State takes on NC State in Raleigh. Mark, thanks as always for joining us, and viewers, we hope you enjoyed the show again this weekend, and we'll be back with you next Saturday night.
Go Noles.